The Woman Was a Witch is a radio script written by Cleve Bullette of Tulsa, Oklahoma. The script was dramatized for radio and aired on the 7th of July, 1948, as episode 67 of The Big Story. The Big Story was a radio crime program which dramatized the true stories of real-life newspaper reporters, and it ran for 9 seasons, from 1947 until 1955. Cleve Bullette was born in Muskogee, Oklahoma, as George Cleveland Bullette, Jr. on the 14th of September, 1909. After Bullette graduated from Muskogee High School in 1927, he went to work for the Muskogee Times-Democrat. He learned journalism while employed there and eventually became a news writer for the newspaper using the byline George Cleveland Bullette. He met, dated, and eventually married Irma Shannon. They wedded on July 14, 1936, and then moved to Stillwell, where Bullette got a job as a news editor for the Standard-Sentinel. A year later, their son Landy was born. Bullette started using the byline Cleve Bullette for his articles and would continue to use that byline for the remainder of his career. In 1940, Bullette moved his wife and son to Poto, Oklahoma, where he became employed by the LaFleur County Sun. Also, that year, the Selective Training and Service Act was signed into law by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Bullette filled out and mailed in a registration draft card. The Tulsa Tribune hired Bullette as a police reporter in 1943, and he moved his family to Tulsa, Oklahoma. In March of 1944, the national news story broke about Mrs. Smith and the Hex House. Bullette became obsessed, spent hours investigating and writing several detailed articles that were published in the Tulsa Tribune. But due to bad luck, bad timing, or both, Bullette was drafted. He enlisted with the Army on May 6, 1944. He was 35 years old when he was stationed at Camp Barkley near Abilene, Texas in July of 1944. He served for 2 years and was discharged in May of 1946. Bullette was able to return to the Tulsa Tribune as a police reporter, and he wrote several articles about crimes in Tulsa. However, there was nothing new to write about the story that interested him. The trials of Mrs. Smith had concluded. She was convicted, and she had already served her 1 year in prison at McAllister. So, Bullette wrote a script about Mrs. Smith in the Hex House. Like many writers before and after him, he heard nothing back on his many submissions to radio stations. Then, on June 12, 1948, he was notified by the producers of The Big Story that his script had been selected to be dramatized for the radio show. The broadcast of The Woman Who Was a Witch aired nationwide on July 7, 1948. Bullette was 40 years old in 1949 when he left his job at the Tulsa Tribune to become a publication supervisor for magazines published by the oil and gas companies. Also in 1949, the producers of The Big Story started a television show based on their radio shows. Bullette was notified that his radio script would be made into a TV show for an episode in Season 2 of The Big Story. Bullette was able to take a leave from his job on June 8, 1951, to see his script performed live on TV from New York City for Episode 27, Season 2 of The Big Story. The show was sponsored by Pall Mall Cigarettes and aired on NBC. Bullette won an award for the script. KOTV, Channel 6 in Tulsa, on Friday, June 29, 1951, featured and interviewed Cleve Bullette on the evening news for his work as a reporter and a writer. Being humble regarding the Hex House story, Bullette gave credit to the three police officers that did most of the investigation: Bob Cleveland, Beulah Johnson, and Alice Whitney. Bullette stated that he only wrote what they discovered. Bullette retired at the age of 66 in 1975. He died on February 27, 1985, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, at the age of 75, and was buried in Claremore, Oklahoma, at the Woodlawn Cemetery.